May 1989. A humid, overcast Sunday in the deep timber of the Adirondacks, Essex County, New York. The air is thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, but as two local berry pickers push through a dense patch of undergrowth near a forgotten logging trail, the smell changes. It becomes sweet, cloying, and unmistakable. They find it in the shadows of the hemlocks, two bodies, or what's left of them. This wasn't just a discovery, it was the opening of a tomb that had been waiting 36 years to be found. But the real horror wasn't what was in the woods. It was what was buried under a garage floor 40 miles away. Open the file. Look at that yellowing Polaroid stapled to the top right corner. The date is smudged, but the ink from the old Smith Corona typewriter is still sharp. Case file 89-402. We're looking at the crime scene photos of the Gerda Forest murders, but we're seeing them through the lens of a cold, gray American industrial town in the late 80s. This isn't a story about a disappearance. It's a story about a neighbor who spent decades curating a gallery of death right behind a white picket fence. Look at this first report dated July 1989. The Adirondack Wilderness was supposed to be a sanctuary, but for Peter and Ursula Reinhold, a couple from the city just looking for a weekend hike, it became a kill box. They vanished. 7 weeks of silence before those berry pickers found them. And here's the detail that chills the bone. While the New York State Police were cordoning off that first site, while the flashbulbs were popping and the yellow tape was being strung between the trees, the killer was still there. Just 800 yards away, through the thicket, he was watching. And he wasn't alone. He had a second pair of victims, Ingrid Warmbier and Bernd Michael Koping. The forensics from '89 are a mess. We have the coroner's reports here, typed on paper so thin you can see the grain. They mentioned struggle marks. They mentioned trophies taken. But the police were blind. They were looking for a drifter, a phantom in the woods. They didn't realize the monster had a mailing address. He had a job. He had a brother. And he had a secret room in a house that looked like every other house on the block. Slide that folder over. Let's go back further. To understand the man in the woods in 1989, you have to look at a classroom in a small town outside Albany, 1954. We have the school psychologist's notes here. Even then they knew. They described a 13-year-old boy named Kurt Werner Wickham as a strange bird, a loner, a boy living in extreme fear of his parents. The notes say the boy was lost, but as we flip through the arrest records from the 60s, we see he found himself in the darkness. By 18, Wickham wasn't just a troubled kid, he was an insurgent. October 1966, a cold, rainy night in a suburban New Jersey neighborhood. Wickham is spotted by a patrol car. He doesn't run. He pulls a small caliber rifle and opens fire on the officers. Think about that. In the mid-60s, you didn't just shoot at the police unless you were ready to go all the way. He was a man who had already crossed the line of no return. He was arrested, but the system of the time, the revolving door of mid-century psychiatric care and lenient sentencing, spat him back out. And then comes the incident with the hitchhiker, 1971. A woman is picked up on a lonesome stretch of highway. Wickham strangles her until she's unconscious. He thinks she's dead. He tosses her into the trunk of his Chevy. Next to her, a shovel is already waiting. This is the blueprint. He didn't just want to kill, he wanted to dispose. He wanted to erase. But she woke up. When he opened that trunk to finish the job, she fought like hell, hit him with the very shovel he intended to bury her with, and escaped. He was sentenced to 5 years. He served them, and when he walked out in the mid-70s, he didn't stop. He just got better at hiding. He became a gardener. Think about the irony of that. A man who spent his nights burying secrets, spent his days tending to the beauty of other people's lawns. He worked for the wealthy. He moved in their circles. He was the invisible man with the green thumb and the blood on his hands. Now, let's look at the disappearance that finally broke the dam. August 1989. Beverly Meyer. A 41-year-old photographer, a mother, a ray of sunshine in a drab town. She vanishes from her home without a trace. The police, preoccupied with the woodland killer headlines from the Adirondacks, treated her case as a footnote. They thought she'd run off. They thought it was the husband. They wasted years looking in the wrong direction, while Beverly was only a few feet away from where she was last seen. We have the audio from the 1990 Missing Persons broadcast. You can hear the desperation in her daughter's voice. But the lead detective at the time, a man named Manfred Hamill, had a hunch. He looked at the neighbor's gardener. He looked at Wickham's record. He saw the violence, the sexual deviancy, the sheer cold-bloodedness of his past. Hamill applied for a search warrant. He practically begged the district attorney. But the DA said no.
They know we have the files.
Not enough evidence, the report says. A 3-year delay that allowed a serial killer to keep breathing while his victims rotted. It wasn't until 1993 that the law finally caught up with him. And even then, it was by accident. A traffic stop near a quiet Pennsylvania town. A simple accident investigation turned into a horror show when the state troopers searched Wickham's car. They found a mobile torture kit, handcuffs, knives, hunting instruments that had no business being in a gardener's trunk. He was arrested for weapons violations. While he sat in that concrete cell in the county jail, Wickham knew the clock was ticking. He started writing letters. We have copies of them in the archive. They're frantic. He's writing to his brother, to his wife. He's giving chores. Clean the gutters, he says. Careful with the cellar entrance. Smash the statue of the Madonna by the fireplace. He wasn't worried about home maintenance. He was giving instructions on how to destroy the evidence of a lifetime of murder. But before the detectives could sit him down in an interrogation room, Wickham took the coward's way out. He used his own belt in the middle of the night. He died taking his secrets with him. And because he was dead, the legal system did something unforgivable. They closed the files. They destroyed the evidence. They literalized the "dead men tell no tales" mantra and burned the very clues that could have brought dozens of families peace. But they didn't count on Beverly Meyer's brother. William Seeloff wasn't just a grieving sibling. He was a retired captain of the state police. He knew how the system worked, and he knew how to break it. For 28 years, William ran a private investigation that makes most TV dramas look like amateur hour. He gathered a team of retired cops, forensic specialists, and lawyers. They never stopped looking for Beverly. Fast forward to 2017. The old Wickham property has changed hands. The garden is overgrown. But William and his team get permission to dig. They focus on the garage. There's a concrete pit there, ostensibly for working on cars. But it's wrong. It's too shallow. It's been filled in. They bring in the heavy equipment. They drill through the concrete. And there, under the oil-stained floor of a suburban garage, they find her. Beverly Meyer. Found after nearly 3 decades. She had been shot in the head and buried in a tomb her killer had built with his own hands. The discovery of Beverly was the golden key. It allowed the police to reopen the Adirondack cases from '89, and thanks to the miracle of modern DNA, specifically mitochondrial DNA that can pull a profile from a single hair without a root, they finally got him. They found Wickham's DNA inside the cars of the victims from 30 years prior. The gardener was the woodland killer. The neighbor was the monster. But here's where the file gets even darker. When the police finally did a full forensic sweep of the house in 2018, they found the secret room. It was on the 2nd floor, a soundproof door that only Wickham and his brother were allowed to pass. Inside? It wasn't a workshop. It was a trophy room. They found hidden compartments in the walls. They found newspaper clippings of unsolved murders from all over the country, not just the ones we knew about. And then they started digging in the yard. They didn't find more bodies, but they found something arguably more disturbing. 500 items. Women's shoes, handbags, wallets, jewelry, all buried in the dirt like seeds. Wickham was a trophy hunter. He didn't just kill, he curated a graveyard of belongings. 500 items.
Anything in the sifter?
If each item
Negative.
represents a life touched by his violence, we aren't looking at a serial killer. We're looking at one of the most prolific predators in American history. The cold truth is that Wickham had access to 25 different cars over his lifetime. He was mobile. He was invisible. He could be in Ohio one week and Maryland the next. The secret room contained articles about the 1968 shooting of a woman near a local park. Articles about a 1969 rape and murder. Witnesses from a 1986 disappearance swear they saw his face near the scene. But the most haunting question remains in the 2024 update of this file: the accomplice theory. Look at the logistics. In the 1989 murders, the victims' cars were moved miles away from the crime scenes. One car ended up 50 miles away at a train station. How does a man kill two people in the deep woods and then drive their car 50 miles away while his own car stays at the scene? He couldn't have walked back. He had a driver. The police currently have a suspect, a living person, someone who was in Wickham's inner circle, someone who walked through that soundproof door and saw the trophies. This person isn't talking. They're leaning on the Fifth Amendment, waiting for the clock to run out. But the forensics team in the lab are working on hairs found in those cars from '89. They're looking for a second DNA profile, a partner in the shadows. We're standing on the edge of the final revelation. 36 years later, the gardener of death is in the ground, but his legacy is still being unearthed. Every time a new shoe is identified from that pile of 500, a cold case file somewhere in America gets a name. The lesson from case file 89-402 isn't that evil is far away. It's that evil is patient. It's meticulous. It mows your lawn. It says hello over the garden fence. And sometimes, it's waiting for you just 800 yards away in the woods, watching you discover what it did to the last people who walked this trail. The files stay open. The investigation continues. Because as long as that accomplice is walking the streets, the summer of '89 isn't over. It's just waiting for the next discovery in the